I'm here to go further in depth on what the president had to say and to assess the terror threat here at home. Michael Cutler, a former senior special INS agent. Michael testified before the 9/11 Commission. He's been warning about the terror threat on our borders for some time now. In fact, that's how we first met during my days on Capitol Hill. Michael, we welcome you back to America's Forum. And let me begin by asking you this. Did the president go far enough in his speech last night in terms of his plans?
Well, no, he did not. Thanks for having me, JD. John, good morning to both of you. It's a privilege to join you this difficult day here in New York. He talked about the need to deprive ISIS the ability to find safe haven. And he clicked off all the things that he wanted to do overseas. And I'm not a military guy, and I found problems with it as a military layman. But on the immigration issue, he said absolutely nothing. It's remarkable to me that in the wake of the terror attacks of September 11th, 2001, an agency by the name of the Department of Homeland Security was created. I have big misgivings about the agency then. I especially have misgivings now. I've come to call the Department of Homeland surrender in point of fact. But the idea, though, is that the problem that we have is that we are providing safe haven for potential terrorists in the United States.
And to that point, Michael, we're going to listen to something the president had to say, what we might call a non-mention of possible domestic threats. Take a listen.
If left unchecked, these terrorists could pose a growing threat beyond that region, including to the United States. While we have not yet detected specific plotting against our homeland, ISIL leaders have threatened America and our allies.
The president says there's no specific plotting by ISIL, as he calls them. Is that lawyerly semantics?
It could be, and the old saying, you don't know what you don't know. But I also find it remarkable, and I'm sure you will agree with me, or I hope you will agree with me, the irony. John McCain has properly identified the southern border as a problem. Certainly it is. But of course, we know the 9/11 terrorists didn't run the borders. They came through ports of entry, which is why I've always made the point that, in point of fact, we are a nation of 50 border states. Any state with an international airport, access to America's thousands of miles of meandering coastline, or lies along our northern as well as our southern borders, are all border states. But once they get here, John McCain's idea of comprehensive reform would provide them with camouflage. A soldier in combat wears those battle fatigues to blend into the surroundings. Terrorists engage in what is known as asymmetrical warfare. The terrorists wear their own form of camouflage. It's identity documents. The 9/11 Commission was very clear about it. They talked about how immigration fraud enabled terrorists not only to enter the United States, but hide in plain sight and embed themselves. And I have to tell you a quick point here. On May 20th, 1997, I was called by the House Judiciary Committee, Subcommittee on Immigration, to testify at a hearing on the issue of visa fraud, immigration benefit fraud because of the 293 terror attacks. Clearly, everybody understood then, understands now, that failures of the visa process, failures of the immigration system enabled the terrorists to enter and hide in plain sight, and yet nobody in Congress who talks about comprehensive reform ever has the integrity to bring up the 9/11 Commission report or findings. My contention, that should be the starting point for any conversation about immigration.
And Michael, we can take a look now at the bitter fruit that has borne. You talked about testifying way back in 1997, 4 years later, September 11th, 2001, and in another part of New York, we can take a look at the pictures going on now. One of the tributes there at Ground Zero honoring the victims of September 11th, 2001. Let me talk to you more about this terror threat that continues at home and updating, if you will, what you had to say to the 9/11 Commission. Michael, if you were testifying today, if there were a new post-9/11 Commission, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that our government is betraying us and violating national security. One of the issues raised by the 9/11 Commission was the issue of visa issuance. They complained about what was known as Visa Express, where aliens were able to get visas without showing up for an interview. The President of the United States, under these so-called dreamers, age 31 being the cutoff, and if you look at the typical age of a terrorist, it's usually somebody under the age of 30, providing hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens who evaded an inspections process, not unlike the TSA process. It's supposed to keep out criminals, terrorists, and others who pose a threat to our safety and well-being, and give them identity documents with no face-to-face interview, no way of knowing who they are, no capacity to do a field investigation. As I like to rhetorically ask, what could possibly go wrong? And meanwhile, we've gone from 26 visa waiver countries on 9/11. Believe it or not, JD, we are now up to 38 visa waiver countries, yet the 9/11 Commission said that the visa process needed to be tightened up to protect us from another attack.
If we wanted to set up a prescription for national suicide, it would appear that we could do no better than this inaction. Now, you have long championed border security. I don't want to use the term border reform because the amnesty guys are grabbing a hold of that, as in open borders and so-called comprehensive reform.
Right.
There is a report on our parent website, Newsmax.com, saying Intel has confirmed that terrorists have discussed being able to enter the U.S. through Mexico. We've got about 2.5 minutes remaining. Michael, what have you heard? Is there coordination between the drug cartels and Islamic terrorists in terms of gaining access to the United States via our southern border?
Well, I don't have hard evidence, but let's look at the facts. The cartels basically control the traffic across that border. They enter our country easily. The easiest proof of a total lack of border security, of course, is the availability and the price of heroin and cocaine. None of those substances are produced in the United States. Every gram of cocaine that is ingested, every gram of heroin that is ingested, represents an abject failure of border security. We've never had more heroin in this country. Police departments, including New York, are providing their officers with the antidote to heroin overdoses. But it's not just about the border. There's got to be real integrity to the immigration benefits program. If you look at the 9/11 Commission report, the 9/11 Commission staff report on terrorist travel, go to my website, michaelcutler.net, you can see it.
And that's what we'll do. We'll take a look at it there. Time prevents us from going more in depth on that point. One other point I want to bring in. Ted Cruz is a senator from the border state of Texas. He has talked about his concerns about stopping ISIS with whatever it takes before there's a domestic attack. Listen.
So we should do what is necessary, using overwhelming force, to take ISIS out before they secure control and before they use the revenues they're getting control of to project force and to carry out terror here at home.
Michael, with your last visit with us, you talked about Texas Governor Rick Perry, in essence, performing a Texas two-step, stepping up security for now, but then trying to accommodate workers, etc. Where does Ted Cruz stand? Is he consistent in terms of border security and national security?
No, in fact, he wants a 500% increase in the number of H-1B visas. He wants to go from 65,000 to 325,000. Silicon Valley just laid off 18,000 workers. We've got to, number one, make certain that our immigration laws do what they were designed to do, protect American lives, American jobs.
And that number one concern is where we will have to leave it. Michael Cutler, as always, we do appreciate your input, a sober assessment, and one that we need to hear on this day of all days. We thank you very much for your time. We continue this special edition of America's Forum, Remembering 9/11, the scene you will see next from the Pentagon. Please stay with us.